Hi, welcome to the Indo Politics Budget 2026 live analysis. We're going to take you through the next hour and a half or so as the Budget 2026 speeches are delivered by Minister for Finance Paschal Donohoe and Minister for Public Expenditure Jack Chambers. We'll be talking through those speeches coming in and out when significant events happening, and we'll also have post-match analysis. I'm joined first by Kevin Doyle, our head of news here at the Irish Independent, and Katie Byrne, Indo Money editor, to talk about what are we expecting here. So, Katie, from a personal finance perspective, what are you watching out for, and what do we know already, or what do you think we're not going to know until it's actually announced?
I don't think we're going to see the one-off measures that we've had in previous years, so the energy credit, certainly not the double child benefit or anything of the sort. So I think for the average worker, they're going to come away disappointed, or perhaps they're going to be feeling it in their pocket. One thing that I'm personally excited about is they're going to reduce, it looks like they're going to reduce the tax on ETFs. So this is a good thing for retail investors. There's kind of a push behind it at a European level. There's a blueprint there to get more people investing for their future. So I think that's promising. But other than that, obviously the hospitality industry, I do think that the VAT's going to be cut there. And I think it's funny, I think in recent weeks with all that kind of chatter about it, I think there's been a sentiment shift. It feels like for the last few years, we've all been calling out saying the restaurant industry is on its knees. But now when they've actually done the calcs and showed us what it would cost in the budget to save the restaurant industry, I think we're all kind of saying, hold on, where's our one-off measures? Where's our energy credit? So yeah, they're the things I'll be watching out for today.
Kevin, the context is different. A year ago, we were here watching the budget. We were literally weeks away from a general election. There was no way that was going to be an austere, belt-tightening affair where Paschal Donohoe was going to tell us, oh, there are risks on the horizon, so we need to rein things in. So we had a bit of an extra giveaway there. There was an argument of whether they needed to carry through the cost of living measures into that period. We had a lot of payments which were coincidentally double payments landing days before the general election. So the messaging is going to be different this time.
Yeah, well, the first thing, Fionnán, is let's just be very clear. This is not an austere budget. It's an expansionary budget. There's 10 billion extra going in tax cuts and new spending. So this idea that this is somehow dark old days, we are so far from that. Maybe we've just forgotten what that actually feels like. It's just what they seem to have done is that last year they ramped it all up because that election was there. And now, rather than kind of weaning us off all those extra payments and tax cuts, it's like a big bang. And the truth of it is, choices are being made. So this is going to be a very political budget. They have decided that we are 4.5 years out from an election. So now is the time to do hard things that, if I can be a bit crude about it, piss people off. And the risks are much lower to do it now. And next year, maybe it'll be back a little bit of income tax cut and they'll work their way up towards the next election. But they're clearly deciding they want to reset things at zero, get rid of all those cost of living measures, and it's easier to do it in a big bang.
Yeah, so we are looking at those cost of living measures such as the energy credits, the extra child benefit, boosted allowances here and there. We're swapping that with targeted measures. So how's that going to work? What's the threshold at which the government is going to say, well, you actually need some extra support?
Well, they're going to look at payments that already exist. So, you know, there's certain payments that you can get for, say, single parents or for families with particular income issues. Child poverty is a big thing that Micheál Martin has been talking about. I gather Simon Harris has been pushing in the disabilities area. There might be a big increase in the disability budget in this, and that obviously only certain people would qualify for them. While Katie talks about the VAT for hospitality, I suspect a lot of people will be in government will be trying to talk about what they're going to do for carers, which is going to be a big increase there at the point in which you can get certain payments for being a carer as well.
Yeah, so that threshold is going up because there's a promise here that somehow there'll be no means test on that over the course of the 5 years. So in year one, it's going to go up. I think it's about 350 quid for a single person, 700 for a couple.
Yeah.
It's going to take a long time to get to the point where there's no means test for that.
If you look back at last year's election, right, I think there were three things that stand out to me in terms of just promises, right. One was the VAT for hospitality, which they are going to do, and it's going to kick in from next July. Another was on childcare. They were going to bring the cost down to €200. There's no real movement towards that at all in this budget, and I think people would be, I think a lot of families would be devastated that there isn't going to be quite a big chunk taken off that if they're going to work towards that over 5 years. And the other one was the carers, that they would do something for carers and that they would have ultimately make the carers grant much more accessible and not means tested. So they are going to make a move on that one. I think people with childcare issues will go, they're not making any move on that one. And obviously they're doing everything for the hospitality. So this is the politics of it. How do you defend that the one that you decided to blow 600 million or whatever it's going to cost on was the hospitality? And of course the opposition will be screaming and shouting about how that goes to McDonald's and Supermax and Burger King and all those American Wendy's and Taco Bell that are coming into the country now. They're all going to get that tax cut as well. So does it save small town coffee shops, or does it boost big global conglomerate franchises?
Yeah, so Katie, we're not exactly expecting that the VAT cut, which apparently, even though the industry is in crisis, isn't going to kick in until July anyway of next year. We're not really expecting that restaurant prices or anything like that, the price of the sandwich in the shop, in the coffee shop or anything like that, they're not going to come down, really, are they? It's going to be absorbed. It's
going to be absorbed, and then, it's looking today like we're going to have an increase in the minimum wage, so that's something else that the restaurants have to factor in. I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to be passed on to the customer, and in fact, I recently spoke to JP McMahon about that, asked him straight, and he said no, he doesn't believe it is. I also think the industry's in crisis for lots of other reasons, the cost of energy, the cost of food. Like, you go into a restaurant these days, and I don't know about you guys, like it's inferior produce a lot of the time, and the restaurants are cold. Like, they're just struggling at every level, and you do wonder, just post-COVID, are they going to get people back?
Is that true though, Katie? I'm a bit more of a cynic about that, because anytime I'm in Dublin city centre, and maybe it's unfair, it's Dublin city centre, it's not Tullamore or Athlone, but like even on a Monday night, town is full. It feels like there are lots of people out spending money. So I don't know if it's the cost factor or what it is. And I think something I've heard a lot of, the narrative has shifted around the hospitality now that people see it's going to cost them, income tax cuts or whatever. And there is this sense that there are coffee shops opening up all over the country. And that is something I would see going around the country, is small towns, coffee shops. They do exist again where they didn't necessarily, I think, a few years ago.
Yeah, is there an issue here that government has got sucked in to a narrative which is not really being matched by their own data? Because even in the best of times, the restaurant and the hospitality sector, there's always a big churn.
Yeah.
Coffee shops, restaurants, they close. Another one opens down the street. It'll last 5 or 10 years. It'll close. It'll move on. So is that going to be a hard sell now for government today to actually convince people this is worth doing it, when they're basically turning around to people who are on income tax and saying, if you got a pay rise next year, well, tough, you're going into a higher rate of tax because we're not going to index it?
I think it's context dependent. I think we could all recognise post-COVID, year after year after year, increasing restaurant closures. The numbers are there to see. It's plain as day. But when you're sitting there and you're kind of hoping that you're going to get some kind of relief on childcare fees, and then you're thinking that it's all gone to the restaurant industry, it's a bitter pill, So, but yeah, your question, have we been sucked into the narrative? No, I think the numbers are there. Restaurant closures have increased. The industry is in crisis, but I do think it's far more complex. I think there's a lot of factors that we have to consider there. But ultimately, like, are we going to get cheaper Big Macs? This is the real question.
I think not. Kevin, social welfare is always the big ticket item. And this year there's a bit of wrangling in government in terms of where the level has been pitched in terms of the increase. And it's put down as the increase in the pension. That's the one that's the focus on. But there's a knock-on effect then across all the social welfare rates from whatever the pension figure is at. So where's that landing?
Yeah, so in the last few days, it's kind of been talked about between 8 and 12 was what was up for debate. And even as late as 6, 7 o'clock yesterday evening, I was hearing from someone very involved in all those talks telling me, I think it's going to land on 9. It's going to land on 9. And then by 9 o'clock, we got it up to 10.
So trying to portray this as a victory.
As a bit of a victory,
when it was actually 12 was the figure that
was
the
shot
minister
for.
was looking for.
That was the target. So €10 is where it's going to land. I suspect they were worried that the 9 would result in a bit of a political... This is how sensitive budgets are. €9 might seem miserly, whereas... €10 is like, well, it's double digits. It's not as bad. It's a round figure. And I think if you had put 9 on it, there would be people on Liveline tomorrow giving out. They wouldn't even go to 10.
Yeah.
9 measly euro.
Yeah.
Do you remember?
Do you
remember Joan Burton was one of the first payments to get a rise again after the economic crash, and we had years of actual austerity. And Joan Burton, I can't remember, was it €2 or €3 she put on the pension, but it was literally the first time the government had given money back after all the years of taking it away from people. And everybody went mad because it was only €3 and you wouldn't even get a bag of chips for it. And she thought she was going, the first people I'll look after are the pensioners. So it's always a hugely sensitive one because it affects so many people. But €10 is where that seems like it's going to land. We'll find out in a few minutes, I guess.
Yeah, and then there'll be knock-on effects there. We're also looking to see what's happening with the fuel allowance because the €5
being
increase
talked about
there, and the broadening of the availability of that because the energy credits are gone. So they're going to try and compensate there. They're going to present it as, the energy credits are gone, but we're looking after the people most vulnerable in that regard. In terms of the politics, there's Jack Chambers and Paschal Donohoe arriving now.
Are they blue ties, Fionnán? Both gone for blue?
Kev won the bet.
Or is there a green? Has Paschal got a green on? Are we looking for symbols here of some outreach from Fianna Fáil to Fine Gael ahead of the presidential election? Is that your point? Paschal or Jack Chambers wearing a blue tie? Is that a signal vote for Heather Humphreys?
I mean, we haven't mentioned the elephant in the room, which is distracting.
Jack Chambers has been a busy boy over the last couple of days.
I think Jack Chambers will just be looking to get through this and hope that there's no big banana skins because he's
wearing green and Paschal is on blue, so they're on
brand.
Yeah, they're on brand colour. Yeah, definitely. So whoever had Paddy Power as the traditional colours. Okay, Verona Murphy introducing. So basically the way this works, Paschal Donohoe will get up now, 45 minutes of the broader economic picture and the taxation, and then Jack Chambers, Minister for Public Expenditure, will do the individual measures across the spending side. We'll be coming in and out during the course of this as well, but we won't be interrupting during anything significant happening.
No, I mean, we can expect lots of mention, well, not by name of Trump, but we can expect talk of tariffs and global uncertainty and
risks.
Wars.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be, there's a risk of this becoming a bit of a sermon in some ways because it's a hard sell to get people on board with this budget compared to previous years. They're obviously standing up now for the...
Yeah, but they need to do it in the first year to set out a signal of context. A lot of chatter. Okay, we'll go over to the Dáil and we'll keep an eye and see what happens. We can do a count on the number of times Trump gets mentioned.
Budget 2026 will invest in our future while securing the jobs, prosperity and stability of today. It will tackle the serious challenges of meeting our housing and investment needs. At the same time, we are preparing for tomorrow. This budget builds up our resilience and will help us to adapt at a time of historic challenge and change for our economy and our society. This budget is the first of this government's term. We will continue to deliver for our citizens over the course of the next 4 budgets and in the years ahead. Ceann Comhairle, our economy has proven to be remarkably resilient, and this is due to the transformation of our country in recent decades. There are 2.8 million people at work in Ireland today, more than lived here in 1961. People are also living longer and healthier lives than ever before. Life expectancy today is 83 years of age, 10 years above expectations just 4 decades ago. The number of adults with a third-level qualification has tripled in a generation. And we've also made huge progress in restoring our public finances to health. Our debt ratio is moving in the right direction and has almost halved since I delivered my first budget to the House in 2016. Ceann Comhairle, while we should reflect on this progress, of which I believe we can be proud, we also clearly understand that not everyone feels the benefit of this in their daily lives. For many, concerns about their cost of living, about access to a home, remain paramount. To make the case for progress we have made is also to acknowledge that we need to achieve more. And we need to achieve more in a world that is dramatically changing. Ceann Comhairle, the certainties that have underpinned our transformation as a country are now being called into question. Uncertainty is the defining feature of the economy of the world this year. While the international order has been shifting for over a decade, this year saw greater fragmentation as widespread tariffs were introduced. The world has been pulling away from its near universal commitment to free and open trade, a commitment that benefited many. And our fortunes are connected to the world around us. Peace and partnership have been the drivers of our economic and social progress in recent years, and Ireland will always be a global voice for and champion of cooperation and trade. It is regrettable that tariffs were introduced, but the recent EU-US trade agreement is still a better outcome than the alternative of higher tariffs and ultimately even greater uncertainty. Nonetheless, tariffs will, of course, impact growth in the coming years. So the question then arises as to how we respond to this challenge, how we respond to a more difficult international environment and rise to these challenges. How do we do this? We do this with a plan to strengthen the resilience we have shown in the past, underpinned by a sensible budget that will safeguard our future. That is how. And it is more pressing than ever that this government presents a budget that protects jobs, that supports growth. My department is projecting modified domestic demand, the best measurement for our domestic economy, to grow by 3.3% this year and by 2.3% next year. Domestic activity is expected to be supported by continued strength in our jobs market, which thankfully has proven to be remarkably resilient to our many and recent shocks. Since the onset of this pandemic, we have added more than 440,000 jobs to our economy. This is a historic achievement by Ireland. It has been driven by record levels of women at work, as well as people coming to work in Ireland. Our strong labour force, the backbone of our economy, is diverse, and there is strength in that diversity. So this budget will protect jobs. It will build on our progress. Looking ahead, we expect to add a further 63,500 jobs by the end of next year, with our economy remaining at full employment in the coming period. Real incomes are also expected to grow, helped by lower inflation, which is forecast to remain at around 2% next year. All of these forecasts have been endorsed by the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council. However, I and the government are still acutely aware that prices remain high, For many necessities, including food, prices are still going in the wrong direction. This budget seeks to address this through targeted supports for those most in need in a way that is affordable for Ireland. And we also need to invest. And this is why the updated National Development Plan, published and delivered by Minister Chambers in July, commits to €275 billion of capital expenditure over the next 10 years. This strategic investment will support our energy, our water, our housing, our transport sectors. These are areas that are critical to making Ireland a better place in which to live and work, while improving the competitiveness of our economy for domestic and for foreign investment. This is about jobs. It's about stability at a time of global challenge. And this investment will not alone increase the potential of our economy, it will boost growth, it will boost job creation in the short and medium term, and this in turn will further safeguard and improve the lives of our citizens. So due to the hard work of the people of Ireland, due to the right policy choices, the government is in a strong position to be able to protect our economy and the public services that underpin it. Our public finances are in good shape. Today's budgetary package is €9.4 billion, as set out in the summer economic statement. €8.1 billion will be allocated for public spending and €1.3 billion will be allocated for taxation measures. I have reduced the tax package by €150 million to facilitate additional spending in targeted supports for the most vulnerable while maintaining an unchanged total budgetary package. We must continue to control the rates of day-to-day spending on a level that is safe and affordable, one that reflects the reality of where we are today. Inflation has moderated. The size of our budgets must moderate too. And every budget is about choices. No budget can do everything, nor should it attempt to. The one-off measures of recent years must be replaced by more targeted, by more permanent supports, given greater certainty to people. So Minister Chambers and I are making the best possible use of the resources available to invest in our future, to strengthen our foundations. Similarly, we should have a tax package that does not put our economy at risk. And to safeguard against that risk, we are running budget surpluses, reducing public debt, and building up funds so that we are prepared for the future. We have run government surpluses over the last 3 years. For this year, the surplus will be €10.2 billion, and next year the surplus will be €5.1 billion. The debt to GNI star ratio, the way we measure the ability of our economy to sustain a certain level of debt, has now declined by more than 40 percentage points relative to the pandemic-related peak. And the government will submit a medium-term fiscal and structural plan to the European Commission in the coming weeks to ensure, like all EU countries, that this and future budgets are sustainable, they're affordable, and that they keep our public finances and our people safe. Our corporation tax revenues have allowed us to respond to challenges, such as the pandemic and the cost of living challenge. But we all know the degree of volatility in these receipts. We know over-reliance is a risk. In addition, international tax negotiations to design a system that achieve a fair and balanced approach to global minimum taxation, and one that accommodates the US tax system while maintaining a level playing field for all, are still ongoing. There is still considerable uncertainty. That is why, Count Corla, we continue to put money aside in the 2 long-term savings funds, the Future Ireland Fund, the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund, to help us deal with the demographic and the structural challenges that may await and the challenges we may not yet be aware of. And that is why, by the end of next year, my department projects that these funds will have built up to around €24 billion, an investment to protect future generations. By the end of this government's term, we expect to have more than €40 billion built up in these long-term funds. And this will allow us to face the challenges of the future from the best possible position. However, we must also be conscious of the challenges we face today, first among them being housing. And in preparing this budget, it has been to the forefront of our minds. For first-time buyers, for aspiring homeowners, for those attempting to negotiate and navigate the rental market, increasing supply is key. The government is determined to use all the policies at our disposal to increase supply, to alleviate pressure so that more people can have access to a home. And that is why we have committed over €5 billion in capital investment for housing delivery next year, and that is in addition to the investment by the Land Development Agency and by approved housing bodies. We have legislated for the biggest changes to the planning system for a generation. We are implementing the National Planning Framework so that homes are built where they are needed, and we have made significant changes to the design of homes to help them become more affordable. Home Building Finance Ireland also provides finance to home builders across the country, and additional funding will be made available to SMEs. To ensure they have the capacity to fund such homeowners, I've consented to €200 million of additional external funding to support this objective. And I've also considered how our tax system can support additional supply, promote regeneration and tackle dereliction. Firstly, I am reducing the VAT rate as applies to the sale of completed apartments to 9% from 13.5%, effective from tonight until the 31st of December 2030. This is to help address the viability gap in apartment construction as part of a social policy to deliver more and higher density apartments, and I will introduce a financial resolution to give effect to this decision this evening. The residential zoned land tax introduced in Budget 2022 came into effect on the 1st of February 2025. This was designed to increase the national stock, the amount of zoned and serviced land to deliver homes across our country. So far, there have almost been 2,000 returns filed. Of these, 526 have requested the deferral of land because the land has been actively developed within planning timelines, and this shows that the objective of the tax is being met. And today, I'm announcing another opportunity for landowners to avail of an exemption in 2026 if they seek to have their land rezoned to reflect the genuine economic activity being carried out. The exemption will be considered by local authorities based on guidelines by the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and further changes to enhance the operation of the tax will be brought forward in the Finance Bill. In line with the Government's commitment to accelerate the delivery of affordable homes, I am exempting the rental profits arising from homes that fall within the cost rental scheme from corporation tax. This exemption will apply to all developments that are designated as falling within the cost rental scheme by the Minister for Housing, Local Government and Heritage from on or after the 8th of October 2025. To further incentivise the provision of new homes, I'm also introducing an enhanced corporate tax deduction for certain costs incurred on the construction of apartment developments
for first-time buyers,
and for the
nothing
conversion
there for them.
of non-residential buildings into apartments. This is to improve the viability of these developments. It will be available for projects where a commencement notice is submitted on or after the 8th of October 2025 and on or before the 31st of December 2030. Turning now to our larger cities, the Living City initiative supports the enhancement of older housing and commercial properties in the designated special regeneration areas in Cork, Dublin, Galway, Kilkenny, Limerick and Waterford. I am making the following substantial changes to strengthen the scheme. I am extending it to the end of 2030. I am increasing its scope for residential properties from those built before 1915 to those built before 1975. Furthermore, I am amending the scheme to support the use of over-the-shop premises for residential purposes. Where the works are carried out by enterprises, the maximum amount of relief available will be increased from €200,000 to €300,000, and I'm providing greater flexibility on the time period over which the relief can be claimed. And finally, over the coming period, I plan to add the 5 regional centres under the National Planning Framework to the scheme. These are Athlone, Drogheda, Dundalk, Letterkenny and Sligo. Adding these special regeneration areas to these towns will require careful planning and preparation by the relevant local authorities. And we're also aware that dereliction continues to be a blight on our towns and cities. We need to bring those properties currently lying empty back into use. To target the activation of this housing stock and in an attempt to breathe new life back into those towns and villages, I am today announcing the introduction of a new derelict property tax which will be implemented and collected by the Revenue Commissioners. With the agreement of the Minister for Housing, this new tax will replace the derelict site levy, which is currently charged at a rate of 7% on the site market value. I do not intend for the new tax to be charged at a lower rate than this.
The big change
I intend to bring forward legislation providing for the derelict property tax in 2026.
So that's really the big change there in terms of derelict houses.
So it's just like the property tax. You take it off the council and you give it to the revenue and then your collection rate goes up.
After that date. The Residential Development Stamp Duty Refund Scheme is due to expire at the end of this year. In the Finance Bill, I will extend it until the end of 2030. This provides for a partial repayment of the stamp duty paid on a deed of conveyance or transfer of land where the land is subsequently developed for residential purposes. And to improve its effectiveness, I'm also making a number of changes to the scheme, including extending the 2 time limits that apply for acquisition to commencement and commencement to completion from 30 months to 36 months, where an application for a stamp duty refund is made in respect of a large-scale residential development. And I'm also providing for a full stamp duty refund to be claimed in respect of a multi-phase development at the commencement of the first phase of that development. And then to continue supporting the upgrading of rental housing stock, I will be rolling over the income tax deduction for small landlords who retrofit their properties for a further 3 years. These measures are designed to encourage more stock into our housing market and to support the development of more and higher
new
quality
things there in terms
homes.
of the VAT on apartments and things, but an awful lot of what we're hearing sounds like things we're doing, we're going to keep doing.
Yeah.
This budget boosts our economic resilience and keeps our public finances safe.
That's the third
It
time
maintains our
resilience
competitiveness
as well. So
and
that's obviously
ability
his
to jobs.
buzzword for the day
And
is
it
going to be
also
resilience.
means the challenges we face in housing and investment can be delivered for households and businesses across the country. The scope for significant personal tax changes is therefore limited. Government is committed to measures that will improve the overall standard of living with a focus on affordable and permanent changes in the budget. However, over the lifetime of this government, I will stand by our commitment to make progressive changes to income tax if and when our economy remains strong.
So the programme for government
Today
says
I'm
exactly
announcing
those
targeted
words about
changes to
making
USC.
income tax changes
As of the 1st
if the
of
economy
January of
stays strong.
2026,
He's just told us the economy is strong, but he's not doing
the
it.
national minimum wage will increase by 65 cents per hour to €14.15 per hour. Accordingly, I will be increasing the ceiling for the 2% rate band by €1,318 to €28,700.
Yeah. And
this increase will
servers
ensure
are generally on
that
minimum wage.
full-time workers on the minimum wage
good for
will
the
remain
workers, though.
outside
Yes,
of the top rate of USC, while also giving a modest benefit to all workers whose income is above that amount. I'm also extending the USC concession that applies to those who have a full medical card and earn less than €60,000 per year, so that the reduced rate of USC continues to apply for a further 2 years until the end of 2027. Where our renters are concerned, I am conscious of the cost pressures that are faced by so many individuals and families. The rent tax credit was introduced in Budget 2023 and has proven to be a very meaningful support for renters, with almost 400,000 people benefiting from it in 2023. The credit is due to expire at the end of this year. I'm announcing that I'm extending it for a further 3 years to the end of 2028 in a bid to alleviate the pressure through what is an important tax measure for many.
It's a nice way of saying
to support
no change.
homeowners.
No change, but
I'm
what's interesting with
extending
the
the
rent tax
mortgage
credit that
interest
often
tax
doesn't get
relief
enough
for
attention
further
is
2 years,
they had way over
with a
budgeted
reduced
for how
value
many people would
applied
actually
to
apply
the
for that.
Totally, yeah.
And then
And
conscious of the fact that
For some
energy
reason,
prices
not as
remain
many people
high,
are claiming it as you
I'm
would you'd
extending
imagine
the
everybody
9%
would
rate
be looking
of
for it. But
VAT
that hasn't played out
on
that way.
gas and electricity
I
bills
think they're
until
conscious
the
of how many
31st
more
of
renters are
December
entering the market
2030,
and how much
with
it's
a
going to
financial
cost by
resolution
this
on
time.
this matter later this evening. This should go some way to alleviating the energy cost pressures across the year for households. Turning to our businesses, the government
you might
has
have
been
mentioned energy
proactive
tax
in
credits
its
if you were going
reaction
to.
the
So,
challenging global environment. Along with our EU partners, we are committed to unlocking the potential of the EU single market, which offers enormous opportunities.
Very limited
in February of this
income
year,
tax package there
the
compared
Taoiseach
to
almost
convened the
nothing.
first
Basically,
meeting
just
of the
allowed for the
government
minimum
trade
wage so that you're
forum
not taking it
to
back
help
in
us
tax.
better understand the
But
changing
for
trade
the average worker,
landscape,
nothing.
which impacts on many firms in many different sectors. And building on this, the recently published Government Action Plan on Market Diversification and the Action Plan on Competitiveness and Productivity lay out our strategy for ensuring the resilience of our economy while boosting further competitiveness. And this budget represents a significant intervention by the government to protect these jobs and businesses and to support them in the future. In line with the commitment in the programme for government to further support businesses and help them retain jobs, I am reducing the VAT rate from 13.5% to 9% on food and catering businesses and for hairdressing services.
Hairdressing?
The
That's
measure
a
will
bit
come into
left
effect
field.
on the
I wasn't
1st
aware
of
of that.
July of
They're in that way.
2026.
Okay.
This will cost €232 million
Delighted with that
in
one, Kate, hear ya?
2026 and
think that's gonna get passed on
€681
either.
million in a full year. It reflects our commitment to support businesses in the service sector who are facing increased cost pressures. And furthermore, it will support more than 150,000 jobs in these sectors right across the country. As a key driver of economic growth and high-value employment, research and development supports are critical to our continuing competitiveness in a changing global environment. And recognising this and following a review
here on text
undertaken
message,
by
which
my
was suggesting it's
department this year,
191,000
I am
jobs,
making
which is
several
a few thousand more than
improvements to
Paschal's
the
just said in his
regime,
speech.
increasing the rate
they
of
definitely have their lines ready on the VAT. Apparently, just 0.4% of hospitality is what they consider large business food chains, like McDonald's.
To support smaller research and development projects. I will also be publishing a research and development compass in the coming weeks, which will consider targeted changes to the research and development tax credit to better align with industry practices, for example, in the areas of outsourcing and qualifying expenditure definitions. It will also set out a pathway for the development of innovation supports. I am also committed to delivering tax simplification for businesses. Last year, a participation exemption for foreign dividends was introduced to simplify double tax relief and to enhance our competitiveness for multinational companies. I will be enhancing those rules by expanding their geographic scope to include jurisdictions where non-refundable withholding taxes apply, and to provide for a number of technical amendments to improve the operation of the scheme. And on that theme of competitiveness, it is crucial that our tax code is attractive to investment and is aligned with international best practice. And accordingly, I'm publishing an action plan today to reform our tax regime for interest. It is informed by responses received to an extensive consultation on the tax treatment of interest in Ireland. The primary request arising from that consultation is for a fundamental reform of the underlying framework for the taxation and deductibility of interest. The phased approach of the plan will progress reforms to achieve a simplified regime that supports competitiveness and protects our tax base. And in this regard, a feedback statement will be published in November for further consultation. To respond to specific competitive challenges being faced by the visual effects sector, I'm today announcing an improvement to the Section 481 film tax credit to provide for a new 40% rate of relief for productions with a minimum of €1 million of eligible expenditure on relevant visual effects work. This rate will apply up to a maximum of €10 million per production. We've also seen the creativity, the success of our digital games sector. To provide certainty to that sector, to encourage its continued growth, I'm extending the digital games tax credit for 6 years to the 31st of December 2031.
Smart move.
The credit will also allow for claims
industry
in respect
that we hear very little
of
about, actually.
post-release
But it's a
with
huge
the original
industry.
game availed of the digital games tax
Even the amount of
credit.
springboard courses they do in that, like even making video game music, like there's so many
bill.
different strands to it.
As the proposed changes to the visual effects and digital games incentives are approved state aids, they will be notified to the European Commission and introduced subject to commencement orders. We also know that entrepreneurs are vital to the creation of jobs, to supporting economic activity across the country. The government is maintaining and committed to maintaining a tax system that supports them. I am enhancing the existing capital gains tax revised entrepreneurial relief by increasing the lifetime limit on gains to which the relief applies from 1 million to 1.5 million for disposals made from the 1st of January of 2026. The change will help ensure the capital gains tax system supports entrepreneurs who are looking to grow their business and take on new challenges. The key employee engagement
tax
programme
cut for writing
is
fiction,
also
isn't it,
due
or
to
books of
expire
cultural
at the end of
books, isn't it?
2025.
Yes, very much so.
And following
For
engagement
Gen
with
Z, yeah.
stakeholders in relation to the scheme, I will extend it to the end of 2028, subject to approval from the European Commission. I've also spoken about the impact that foreign direct investment plays in our economy through the creation of employment, through the expansion of businesses. I'm therefore extending the special assignee relief programme for 5 years, while also increasing the minimum qualifying income to €125,000 to ensure the relief is appropriately calibrated. I will also simplify the administrative requirements and will set that out in the finance bill. As an open economy, our economy is deeply integrated into global trade flows. We are exposed to external economic downturns or volatility. The foreign affairs deduction is an important incentive for employees that support Irish firms in exploring and expanding into new markets. I will extend the scheme for a further 5 years, and I'm also increasing the level of relief available to €50,000 and extending the scheme to include the Philippines and Turkey. Recently agreed changes to EU VAT law will reshape our VAT administration environment to better recognise and facilitate how we trade, while strengthening the capacity of tax systems across the EU to tackle VAT laws. So to that end, the Revenue Commissioners will begin a phased rollout of domestic electronic invoicing arrangements for business-to-business transactions, and they will publish further details of this tomorrow. Withholding taxes are also an important feature of our tax system, and I want to explore opportunities to modernise them, to digitalise them, and to further expand their scope as we continue to adopt and respond to new and developing business models. A joint public consultation on this topic between the Department of Finance and Revenue will be launched soon. All of these measures will contribute to the creation, to the retention of jobs, and better use of our savings can also contribute to this objective. The EU Savings and Investment Union aims to make it easier, safer and cheaper for people to invest. This gives citizens a better return. It helps them to fund businesses that can grow. And in recognition of the importance of encouraging retail investment, today I am reducing the tax rate that applies to Irish and equivalent offshore funds and foreign life assurance products from 41% to 38%. Reflecting the complexity of the tax framework for retail investment and to facilitate due consideration of the Fund Sector 2030 report, I will publish a roadmap early next year.
Yeah, but
It's
41 to 38.
It's not huge. I was expecting it to come down to maybe like 30, 33, which would be similar to like if you were doing exiting a stock.
European Commission recommendation on savings and investment accounts. And of course, we will do this as Ireland is in a leading position in the investment funds and asset management industry globally, a sector that supports almost 37,500 jobs across our country, and we will publish an implementation plan for this sector today. That report recommended a public consultation on potential options for an entity-level tax for IRFs. I do not propose to progress that recommendation. However, my department will undertake a public consultation on proposals to simplify the IRF regime without limiting its effectiveness. And in order to support these capital markets, I'm introducing a new market cap exemption stamp duty threshold of €1 billion for Irish SMEs and startups trading on regulated markets. For companies below this threshold, the 1% stamp duty charge paid on share transactions will not apply. This change is essential to the growth of homegrown businesses, especially those that want to grow internationally. And finally, I believe that it remains appropriate that the banking sector continues to make a contribution to the Irish economy.
It's a budget
Therefore,
for your
I'm
business rather than your family.
the levy for one further year with a target yield of €200 million. So I've acknowledged that domestic and foreign investment are key to our economic growth, and so too is the success of our farming sector. I want to acknowledge the report of the Commission on generational renewal in farming. This report looked at farm succession in particular and made a series of recommendations, including the extension of 4 tax relief schemes that are specific to this sector, which were due to end this year. I have considered this matter and have decided to extend the Farm Consolidation Stamp Duty Relief, the Farm Restructuring CGT Relief, and the Young Trained Farmer Stamp Duty Relief to the end of 2029, and I'm also expanding the scope of Farm Restructuring Relief to include woodlands and forestry. And in addition, in order to continue to help farmers meet their emissions targets and to address our shared environmental challenges, I'm announcing an extension of the Accelerated Capital Allowance Scheme for slurry storage facilities for 4 more years. And it continues to be important that these measures constitute state aid and therefore must comply with state aid rules.
Again, if you're a farmer watching in what you've heard there is extend, you're not getting anything new.
Legislated for annual increases in carbon tax out to 2030. This year's increase, which brings the tax to €71 per tonne of CO2 emitted, will be applied to auto fuels with effect from tomorrow and all other fuels from the 1st of May 2026.
So let's make that quite clear.
The
Fill up your car before midnight. Petrol and diesel are going up to 2.5 cents, thereabouts at midnight. So I've already texted my wife and told her to do it this afternoon.
Of €157 million. And these measures will be ring-fenced to ensure that carbon tax policy is progressive. We will spend this revenue on social welfare measures and other measures to prevent fuel poverty, to ensure a just transition, and indeed also a socially progressive national retrofitting programme to encourage also and to support our farmers to farm in a greener and more sustainable way.
Manipulative, saying we're going to spend that money, don't be moaning because it's going to the most disadvantaged. Like it's all one pot.
Yeah, but they say that bit's ring fenced, but then you can't ring fence in other areas. They say they don't do ring fencing.
An 11-fold increase to where we were in 2020. We're also making huge progress on solar generation. Today there are over 140,000 households with solar PV installed, providing greater energy affordability for those homes, both by reducing their own energy demand and by allowing them to sell excess energy into the grid. In support of increasing the number of electric vehicles on our roads, I'm extending the €5,000 VRT relief for electric vehicles for a further year until the 31st of December 2026. And in relation to the benefit in kind regime for company cars, I am extending on a tapered basis the universal relief on the original market value of a vehicle, which was first introduced as a temporary measure in 2023. The relief will remain at €10,000 in 2026. It will reduce to €5,000 in 2027 and €2,500 in 2028, being abolished in 2029. I'm also creating a new vehicle category for zero-emission cars only, where the lowest BIK rates will apply. To encourage further capital investment to help deliver a reduction in emissions, I'm extending the Accelerated Capital Allowances Scheme for energy-efficient equipment and for gas vehicles and refuelling equipment for a further 5 years until the 31st of December 2030, and to help as many citizens as possible to play a role in the energy transition, I'm extending the income tax disregard of €400 for income received by households who sell electricity from microgeneration back to the grid for a further 3 years to the end of 2028.
Did you get your solar panels yet?
No.
Moving on to
your readers are all about solar panels on Indo money, aren't they?
The authority will be responsible for licensing and supervising the betting sector. Pool betting is responsible for just 2 entities currently, but under the new regime, a wide range of licence holders may be authorised to engage in pool betting. I'm concerned that betting operators may be incentivised to modify their business structures to avoid liability for betting duty, so I will legislate in Budget 2027 for a separate pool betting duty charge.
Can anyone explain to me?
This will provide time for engagement
I like a
between my
punt, but I
department
have
and
no idea what he's
relevant
talking about.
stakeholders and the design and the
Okay,
structure
we'll figure out that
of
one.
duty.
We'll figure out that one.
And to support public health policy to reduce smoking in Irish society, I'm increasing excise duty on a pack of 20 cigarettes by 50 cents with a pro-rata increase in other tobacco.
It's 50
products.
cents every year
he's talking about.
So, Count Corla,
Yeah,
pot.
no, that's exactly
our public
it.
finances are in good shape. Our employment is at a
wrapping
historically
up. He's
high
gone over
level.
time anyway.
Our schools, our hospitals,
So 50 cents in
our
a cigarette,
public
but nothing on the bottle of
services
wine.
are responsible for
the price of a pint.
so much good in our society.
I think they're trying
But
to avoid a
we
backlash
must
here,
build
Fionnán. If
more
they put a
homes.
price of a pint,
We
that
must
might be the
help
thing that
those
tips people
who
over the
need
edge.
our help in a more targeted way. Minister Chambers and I make the case for that in this budget, for a budget that builds on what is good in our economy to achieve more for our country and for its citizens today and in the future. This budget will boost our resilience. It will protect jobs.
Yes.
It puts us in the
Drinking
best
game.
possible
Up to
position
five
to
resilience now.
create a stronger and a more competitive economy while meeting the needs of our people today and in the time to come. To achieve this, a budget must make choices. Any budget that attempts to achieve everything in a single go weakens our ability to be safe in a turbulent world. That's why we make the case for running budget surpluses, for setting up funds for the future, not for some abstract reasons, but because this approach gave us the ability to help in the toughest of moments in recent years. And it will do so again. That is why we have to strike the right balance between increasing investment and moderating the growth in day-to-day spending. That is why our tax changes must be of a certain value and no more. And that is why now is the time to steady ourselves on the path for the future. In this and in future budgets, Minister Chambers and I, with the Taoiseach and Tánaiste and independent colleagues, will continue to stay on the path to support growth, to maintain safe public finances. And we will do this because this, in turn, offers the best protection, the best support for our people. And through our investment in people, in jobs, in homes, we are determined to meet the challenges that we face today and to realise our hopes and our ambitions for tomorrow. I commend Budget 2026 to Doyle Aaron.
Thank
Big
you.
takeaway, Kevin.
Turbulent world, and
Okay.
we need to be resilient.
Katie, what did you take away from that?
I think if you don't own a business or you're not out there, you know, trying to make things happen, this isn't a budget for you.
Okay. No, limited on the income tax in the extreme.
And no surprise, Fionnán.
Yeah.
No rabbit, no hat.
Here's Jack Chambers. So here's the goodies.
The minister for Jim Gavin.
Ní mór dún aige hort an timpachach na míoch agus follatúil atá ag titim amach níos fuide. Tá ór na canúna búlsa le héireann. Beag tioncar ag an mealach around the mids le hin níos tíocht a dhéanamh in ar gcuid gnóthaí ach na míochta aniu. Mar aon leis an gcuí a dhéanamid na gnóthaí ach na míocha sinna flanál agus a bhanistú ar an tír seo go geann na dehanna na bhlínta. Ken Corla, for a long time we've traded on our advantages as a small, open, agile economy. While this continues to serve us well as a country, we must take every opportunity to strengthen the foundations of our economy and of our society. Ireland stands at a crossroads. How we choose to invest, plan and manage our economic affairs today will shape our country's future. Budget 2026, the first in this government's term, represents an opportunity for a renewed economic fiscal approach, an approach that places the long-term development of our country at its heart and that strives to deliver better outcomes for all. To improve people's lives, we need to ensure that the decisions we make today are grounded in the best interests of our nation. Our vision is to create a thriving country where enterprise can flourish and people feel valued regardless of background, ethnicity, sexuality or gender. This is our opportunity to be a caring country defined by stability, tolerance and progress for those who were born here and those who have chosen to make Ireland their home. We must challenge the voices who try to use diversity to divide us. Instead, we will continue to celebrate the differences that elevate our cultural identity and our national heritage. This is the flag we must fly, moving forward together. In the face of many threats over recent years, our economy and our people have been remarkably resilient. While there are challenges that we've yet to overcome, it's important to acknowledge that Ireland is a successful country. We have a strong economy with over 2.8 million people in employment. We have high living standards, long life expectancy, excellent educational outcomes and a progressive system of social supports that work to ensure that the most vulnerable are protected. We must safeguard what we have worked so hard to build while striving to become more competitive, protect jobs and create new ones, investing, building more homes and excel as a country that is open for business, open for investment and open for opportunity. Lagan an bushade an léiniu bunshra Sheahan don na blinta tá amachróin. Tá ómis an deis inis tógáil an runse sin watha le tauki rahul a chinsú de bhuintear na hÉireann. Today's budget lays the foundations for our future. It shifts the focus from isolated departmental or sectoral needs to our country's broader strategic priorities, considering the trade-offs and choices we'll face along the way. Reforming how we spend public money must be a priority. This is a key focus for me as a minister and for this government. It has been central in all my discussions with all ministers through 2025 and in settling departmental allocations for 2026. This government has taken the decision to moderate spending increases, providing more targeted and permanent measures, making the best use of the resources that are available to us. We're doing this to secure the long-term sustainability of the public finances. The programme for government is clear in its ambition to secure our country's future, and today's budget is an important milestone on this journey. While we cannot do everything in a single budget, the allocations I'm setting out today will deliver permanent impacts that make a positive difference to people's lives while also investing at record levels in our future. Budget 2026 is built on three priorities. First, we will ramp up our investment in vital infrastructure, which will boost productivity, protect jobs and support long-term growth. Second, we will make targeted improvements to public services, making sure they are reliable, accessible and efficient. And third, as set out by Minister Donohoe, we will strengthen our economic foundations so we are better prepared to weather future uncertainties. To support delivery of these priorities, I'm allocating €116.8 billion in 2026, an €8.1 billion increase on this year's allocation. An additional €6.1 billion will be allocated for current expenditure, with the budget for capital projects increasing by €2 billion. The current expenditure package will provide €2 billion for social protection to provide for our growing population, expand existing schemes and deliver a series of targeted new measures. €1.5 billion for health to hire more frontline staff and enhance the level of service that is being provided for. €1.2 billion for public service pay agreements, and a further €1.4 billion is being provided to broaden supports across many sectors. Overall, this will support an increase of 12,500 staff to deliver services directly to the public, including 3,370 in the health sector, 2,600 in the education sector and up to 1,000 in An Garda Síochána. I will also be setting aside €1 billion in a contingency reserve to be held centrally. This will allow us to respond to exceptional in-year expenditure pressures in 2026 and will fund elements of the costs related to Ireland hosting the EU presidency. 100 years ago this year, a fledgling state showed ambition and action. At that time, Ireland faced a very different set of challenges, a young state with scarce resources emerging from war and conflict. And yet the state had the courage to commit 20% of its national budget to build Ardnacrusha, one of the most ambitious engineering projects in the world at that time. In the way Ardnacrusha transformed the state then, we're again at the beginning of an infrastructure revolution that will require that bold ambition. We must embrace this opportunity with the belief and the confidence that we can shape the destiny of the next generation. This is our duty to the children born here today. We must confront head-on the systems and mindsets that have made delivery so difficult. Without change, we will see critical shortages of power and water within a few years. Congestion on transport networks will grow. Our ability to deliver more homes will be impacted, as will opportunities for investment and job creation. To address our country's infrastructure deficit, we must be prepared to radically overhaul how we deliver public projects. Next month, I will publish a detailed action plan to tackle these barriers of delivery. This will include plans to progress legislative reforms to strike a better balance between the rights of individuals and the public good, simplify regulation and consenting systems to make it easier to deliver projects,
optics. He's gotten much better at delivering a speech. It's not his first day time doing it, but he's quite fluid and he has a message. Whether you like it or not now is a different question, and we haven't heard any details. So let's let him keep going.
The largest capital investment plan in the history of this state. Through this plan, government will provide €275 billion over the period to 2035, prioritising funding for water, energy and transport, the building blocks to deliver more homes. In 2026, I will allocate €19.1 billion for capital investment, an increase of €2 billion on 2025. This will provide funding to progress thousands of new build social homes, major water infrastructure projects and flood relief schemes, build sustainability and resilience in our electricity grid and boost our electricity supply, and major projects
I'll start a Jack count on resilience.
Health, education, justice and art sectors. Details of specific projects to be delivered in 2026 will be announced shortly, with sectoral investment plans for the next 5 years to be published by departments in the coming weeks. It's critical that we deliver these investments. The urgency with which we need to make progress can so clearly be seen when we look at housing. At Concorla, this government's absolute priority is to strengthen the foundations for housing delivery and build more homes for our people. In 2026, I'm allocating a total of €11.3 billion in funding to the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. Almost €2 billion of this funding will continue to meet the social housing needs of over 100,000 households through the housing assistance, rental accommodation and social housing current expenditure schemes. Within this, I'm allocating €7.2 billion in capital funding, the largest ever such allocation for housing. This will include €2.9 billion to support the delivery of thousands of new build social homes and the second-hand acquisitions programme, €1.2 billion for the Starter Homes programme to deliver thousands of starter homes through a range of affordability supports alongside the Help to Buy initiative. €300 million will support the regeneration of our towns and urban areas through the Urban Regeneration Development Fund. €205 million will be allocated to a new housing activation infrastructure fund to support the work of the new Housing Activation Office. €140 million being allocated to retrofit further social homes, and €130 million will fund up to 17,000 adaptation grants of homes for older people and people with a disability. These measures, in addition to the tax changes just set out by Minister Donohoe, will make a real difference in the delivery of housing across our country. But to build these homes, we need to provide the critical building blocks of water and energy. In the National Development Plan, I've committed to providing €12.2 billion in capital funding to expand our water and wastewater services. Following through on this commitment in 2026, I'm providing €1.4 billion to Uisce to continue to build essential capacity to support new housing developments and to increase the resilience and sustainability of water supply. This will help to further progress the development of wastewater treatment plants right across the country. I'm providing €3.5 billion to ESB and EirGrid to strengthen our energy security and accelerate our transition to renewable energy. Building on this, I'm allocating €1.1 billion to the Department of Climate, Energy and the Environment in 2026. This includes €558 million in carbon tax revenue for residential and community energy upgrade schemes, continued investment in the retrofit of public buildings to support the delivery of our national retrofit plan, €209 million for the Climate Action and Environmental Leadership Programme to support our climate objectives and enhance biodiversity. Within this, €82 million has been prioritised to support a just transition for the wider Midlands region. Projects include decarbonising rural bus routes, support for private bus operators to transition to electric vehicles, wetland restoration and support for nature and biodiversity. Just as our investment in energy lays the foundation for a sustainable future, our approach to transport must ensure that this future is accessible to all. Our country's progress is driven by connectivity. Modern, efficient and effective transport systems unlock the full potential of our towns, cities and communities. Today I'm announcing a €4.7 billion allocation to the Department of Transport for 2026. This includes €940 million for a public transport public service obligation to support our public transport network, connecting communities and people's access to education, work and leisure. We will also continue the rollout of the DART Plus programme and Bus Connect programmes in Dublin and our regional cities, including the construction of 2 core bus corridors in Dublin, the Cork Area Commuter Rail Phase 1 and the Enterprise Fleet Replacement projects. Several major road projects, including the Adair Bypass, the N5 Balhadreen to Scramogue and the M28 to Cork to Ringaskiddy, and a major investment of greenway and active travel projects will be funded and developed in 2026. We will also continue to invest in aviation and maritime connectivity and to provide a world-class search and rescue service through the Irish Coast Guard. Additionally, as outlined in the National Development Plan this year, €2 billion from the Infrastructure, Climate and Nature Fund is being allocated to progress Metrolink. Planning for this transformational project has been approved. Now it's time to deliver. As our infrastructure brings us closer together
Nothing else we need to stop talking about it.
Public services bind
Just give
us
us
as
the
a
Metro.
society. The strength of our public services and what we choose to prioritise is a statement of what we value as a people.
Lengthy section there about infrastructure, and now we're moving on 15 minutes into
an education system that
services.
consistently
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are watching that will be going,
and a health
what's in this for me?
service that
Billion
contributes
for water
significantly
here and
to
this and
improved
that.
health outcomes
All
for
important
many
stuff,
people.
but
This progress has been delivered through consistent investment and targeted decision-making across many years
But we're gonna get
and has
into
raised the
social
standards
welfare, health,
and
education and so on
expectations
now.
for what can be delivered. While it's important to acknowledge what works well, we must continue to focus on improving our systems of social support. The government cares about our people and has designed a progressive budget that delivers permanent and targeted social welfare measures that will shield the most vulnerable against cost of living rises. Count Corla, I'm pleased to be able to provide for a Christmas bonus for 1.5 million recipients of long-term social welfare schemes this year. This will be paid at a rate of 100% of the normal weekly payment and will provide much-needed support
that's your
to
classic
families
double
over
payment
the
at Christmas
seasonal
for
period.
pensioners,
Next year, I'm
job
allocating
seekers,
€28.9
disability
billion to the
allowances.
Department of Social Protection, an increase of over €2 billion. This allocation allows me to provide an increase of €10 per week for a person receiving a weekly social protection payment. This will benefit 1.5 million recipients, including pensioners, people with disabilities, carers, job seekers and lone parents. To support people with disabilities and carers, I'm increasing the carers allowance income disregard to €1,000 for a single person and €2,000 for a couple. I'm also increasing the rate of domiciliary care allowance by €20 per month to €380 per month. In the programme for government, we have committed to lift more children out of poverty, guided by a new child poverty target of no more than 3% of children living in consistent poverty by 2030. A multi-year programme of supports begins today. I'm happy to announce a €300 million package of supports for children and families. As part of this, I'm increasing the weekly rates of the child support payment by €8 for children under 12 and by €16 for children over 12, the largest ever increase in this rate.
Okay, so that is not the child benefit one.
No.
Yeah, that's the point here.
Children under 12 and €78
So rather than going
for
two-tier child
children
benefit,
over
they've gone in
12.
on this
I'm
payment, the
also
child support payment,
increasing
which is
the working
targeted at the
parents
lower
payment
end.
to
Yeah.
income thresholds by €60 per week for all families. I'm also extending the back-to-school clothing and footwear payment to 2- and 3-year-olds. To support those at risk of energy poverty, I'm increasing the weekly fuel allowance rate by €5 to €38, and following the recommendations of the National Energy Affordability Task Force, I'm also extending fuel allowance eligibility to all households in receipt of the working family payment. This will help protect around 50,000 families from energy poverty. Alongside these new measures, the 2026 allocation for the Department will provide an additional 30,000 recipients on pensions, illness, disability and carer schemes. The full-year cost of job seekers' pay-related benefit introduced earlier this year, and continued support for over 50,000 beneficiaries of temporary protection from Ukraine, including lone parents, pensioners and other vulnerable cohorts. In addition to this substantial social welfare package, the State will also deliver one of the most significant reforms in our history through the introduction of pension auto-enrolment from January 1st, 2026. My Future Fund is designed to support workers who are not currently part of any pension plan. Over time, it's expected to benefit around 750,000 people, securing a higher income in retirement for workers. These measures ensure that we improve the lives of our people through sustained investment and better public services. One of the most essential services provided by the State is our public health system, which safeguards the well-being of individuals, families and communities right across the country. 2026 will see a total funding package of €27.4 billion going to the Department of Health. This record level of investment will deliver an increase in acute hospital capacity of at least 220 beds and the expansion of diagnostic services, at least 280 community beds, continued investment in the community nursing units refurbishment programme and reductions in community waiting lists, an additional 1.7 million home support hours, 500 more nursing home places, increased staffing and expansion of mental health services, including suicide prevention, increased access to CAM services and traveller mental health initiatives, and enhanced community and primary care services, including the rollout of the new pharmacy contract. The value of this record level of investment needs to be fully realised, with a focus on productivity, efficiency and better financial governance. These changes will create the basis to establish a more multi-annual structure of funding our health system. Accordingly, this year's significant funding allocation will be accompanied by a programme of progressive reform in our health system. These include the ongoing decentralisation of service provision through the new regional health areas, rostering reform which will see the extension of health services to evenings and weekends, and a reduction in the dependency on agency staffing, financial management reform which will allow for improved financial reporting, better use of procurement and increased expenditure control, investment in digital health including the HSE Health App, the National Share Care Record and virtual wards. Another area of investment relating to health is disability, and this programme for government commits to advancing the rights and improving the lives of people with disabilities. To progress these priorities, I'm allocating €3.8 billion to the Department of Children, Disability and Equality for disability services in 2026. This includes funding for community-based disability services to ensure people with disabilities receive the right support at the right time in the right place. It will provide permanent and predictable funding and deliver tangible impacts for people with disabilities. Over 9,000 people will receive the residential care they need, including 250 new placements next year. 1,400 young people finishing school will be supported with day services places, along with 50 additional places for older adults. Families waiting for assessments will see progress, with around 6,500 private assessments funded to reduce delays. More than 150,000 hours of home support and personal assistance will help people to live independently in their own homes. and 10,000 overnight and 15,000 day respite sessions will be provided. To drive reform, a dedicated unit has been established in the Department to lead a review of Ireland's disability service model. This unit will work hand in hand with people with disabilities, their families and representative organisations to shape a long-term vision for services out to 2030. Just as we strengthen support for people with disabilities, we're equally committed to delivering systems that support and protect our young people. To make progress in this area, I'm increasing the funding for early years by €125 million in 2026, bringing total investment in early learning and childcare to €1.5 billion. This will fund the National Childcare Scheme, with more than 285,000 children set to benefit from the scheme in 2026, an increase of approximately 35,000 children. Universal early childcare and education, benefiting over 105,000 children in 2026. The access and inclusion model for an increasing cohort of children with disability to access and meaningfully participate in formal childcare. A 10% increase in the capitation rate for AIM Level 7. Year 4 of core funding, with enhancements in Year 5 of the scheme to improve pay for educators and school-age children practitioners, with the implementation of new employment regulation orders. The Building Blocks Infrastructure Programme will fund extensions of existing community centres and schools to deliver approximately 2,300 additional childcare places. Investment in our child welfare services is also a key priority for this government. This year, €1.3 billion is being provided to TUSLA to provide for foster care, family support services and additional residential care placements.
Ireland has one of the strongest thing was a thing called Building Blocks to extend community centres and schools, which he says will give an extra 2,300 places. How long does it take to extend a school or a community centre? I don't think those places will land in 2026 if that's the
of
plan.
€13.1 billion in 2026. This allocation will provide for 1,717 additional SNAs for students with special educational needs in 2026. The highest number of SNAs we have ever had in our education system, at almost 24,900. Along with an increase of 1,042 teacher posts, including 860 additional teachers working across various special educational needs settings, including in mainstream, special classes and special schools. Continued investment in the school transport scheme, bringing 170,000 students to and from school. Additional funding is now being provided to support the implementation of DESH Plus and a new DESH plan, supporting children at risk of educational disadvantage with targeted measures. The planned rollout of the education therapy service that will commence in special schools, providing access to essential therapy services. Additional funding for young people through youth services is being provided, with an increased focus on capital investment. I'm also announcing an increase of the standard capitation rates paid to all schools. This will include, on a per pupil basis, €50 for primary and special schools, from €224 to €274. €20 for post-primary schools, from €386 to €406. In addition to this, the Department's €1.6 billion capital allocation for 2026 will progress the delivery of over 300 school building projects, with the majority of these expected to be completed in 2026 and 2027. Within this, there will be a strong focus on the delivery of additional capacity for approximately 2,800 places for special classes and special schools from the first tranche of projects, as well under the Climate Action Work Scheme. It's important to remember that learning doesn't end with childhood. It can be a lifelong journey for us all. And the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science continues to foster adult learning and the development of the skills and the needs to support our workforce and our enterprise sector. In 2026, the Department will receive an allocation of almost €5 billion. €4.1 billion will allow for increased delivery of apprenticeships to support key infrastructure projects for the economy, the provision of 1,110 new places in key health and social care professions to meet the workforce needs of the health, disability and education sectors. A permanent reduction of €500 in the student contribution fee to support students.
So I can tell you now the opposition will already say that's a €500 increase, because obviously there was a €1,000 cut off it in the cost of living package. So it's going to come back to 2,500 now.
So this was the one that James Wallace got in trouble for being honest about and saying it was going to go, and he had to be rescued with this €500.
Maybe it was all a clever ploy all along.
University and University College Dublin. Development and operation of 11 technological university facilities covering 70,000 metres squared
for higher education's own constituency there. That's the
disciplines. 2 new veterinary medicine colleges to almost double the number of veterinary graduates. The progression of centres of excellence for retrofit skills, including near-zero energy buildings, and the National Demonstration Park for modern methods of construction under Housing for All. By nurturing talent, we can strengthen our nation's competitiveness on the global stage.
There's something in that now. I'd like to see what the
heart of our economic
thought process is there.
Corla, this government is committed to supporting our businesses. I'm allocating €1.3 billion to the Department of Enterprise, Tourism and Employment. This will fund Enterprise Ireland to strengthen its capacity to support Irish businesses in scaling innovation, accessing global markets and creating high-quality, sustainable jobs. The IDA to continue to attract world-class foreign direct investment to our shores, the promotion of regional enterprise development through local enterprise development offices, the establishment of a national artificial intelligence office to provide a focal point for the promotion and adoption of transparent and safe AI in Ireland, and the delivery of action plans on market diversification, competitiveness and productivity.
National AI office,
€223 million is also being
interesting
provided
to see.
under the Tourism
Foresee a
Services Programme,
debate over who heads up that office.
Government's commitment and recognition of tourism as a vital driver of regional development and employment. This range of supports will enable us to fully capture strategic opportunities and enhance our position as a trading economy on the world stage. We must also cement Ireland's diplomatic presence and place on the world stage. As we witness the horror of the ongoing genocide taking place in Gaza, we must recommit our state to continue to use all our considerable diplomatic resources to support peace in our world. To support the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to do this in 2026, I'm allocating €1.3 billion. This will ensure that Ireland continues to expand our global footprint, with the number of missions abroad reaching 107 next year, boost our official development aid by €30 million in 2026, and support the implementation of Government's action plan on market diversification. Provision has been made in the overall budget ceiling for the requirements of the Presidency of the Council of the European Union. Specific funding allocations on this will be made available in due course. As we enhance our role internationally, it's important also to consider our largest indigenous export sector, the agri-food sector. At the heart of towns and villages across Ireland, agriculture and food production is a cornerstone of our economy. To continue to support this vital sector, I'm allocating €2.3 billion to the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine. €85 million in additional funding will more than double the allocation for bovine TB eradication, enabling the rollout of the bovine TB action plan and reducing the risk of outbreaks. Funding for the Acre scheme will increase by €20 million to reach €280 million in 2026, continuing to support over 53,000 farmers. €20 million will allow for the continuation of the National Sheep Welfare Scheme, which assists over 17,000 farmers, and €35 million will be provided to the World Food Programme to support people affected by emergencies, conflict and climate change internationally. Government is committed to continuing to support our fishing communities and aquaculture sector. €7.4 million in increased funding is being provided to Bordee Skawara programmes to support and enable a sustainable Irish seafood sector. Another area where Ireland thrives in the global arena is in culture and sport. For a small country, Ireland offers an extraordinary wealth of talent and entertainment. Our artists, writers and athletes are now leading the way on the world stage, while our media keep us connected to each other and to global stories as they unfold. To build on the progress we've made, the Department of Culture, Communications and Sport will receive an allocation of €1.5 billion in 2026. This provides for a €10.7 million increase in current expenditure for Sport Ireland, €3 million of which will support the establishment of League of Ireland football academies. Ireland has a proud footballing history in both domestic and international level.
Was it? I don't want to correct you now, I could be wrong, but I think they'll be happy with 3 million in the FAI at the minute, the way things are, to get any money from the Minister. He's had plenty of clashes with them, so they'll be happy, I think.
Brexit means many more young players are staying in our domestic system for longer. This presents us with a responsibility, but also an enormous opportunity to nurture our brightest young talents here at home and provide them with the best environment to fulfil their potential. The investment I'm announcing here today is the start of a multi-annual commitment from this government to focus on grassroots and build a new era for football in our country. I'm also allocating an additional €1.6 million to support inter-county Gaelic Games players and funding to support the Irish Rugby Football Union to strengthen
we're looking for a lot of money, the extra money for players. I suspect that's what he's referencing there.
Inspires us all and brings that collective ambition to be better. When our sportsmen and women succeed, our nation rises. The same can be said of our artists. Throughout our history, our arts community and the world-class talent it boasts has ensured Ireland has always been a home of creativity. In recognition of the essential role of arts and artists in our society, the previous government introduced a pilot basic income for the arts scheme, and this government is now committing to deliver a successor scheme to begin next year. In addition to this, I'm allocating €84.9 million for arts and culture in 2026 to provide for increased funding for major projects such as the Crawford Art Gallery. I'm also allocating €433 million to support the completion of the National Broadband Plan, while €5 million in additional funding will strengthen the post office network to enhance its role at the very heart of rural and community life. The 2026 allocation of €357 million to broadcasting will include provision for Seasca Chui Punca Car Euro do TG Cahar, Lennon Aritz or Médio Chui Punca Car million euro, Honover Gaelga archides on Clor de Fasti agus service the Newark the Nias Lehna Hintu. €65.4 million for TG Car, including a €5.4 million increase to ensure high quality Irish language content, children's programming and expanded news services. Support for the continued delivery of the reform and transformation agenda in RTE. Celebrating our culture means celebrating the people living in the towns, the villages and the communities right across our island. This government is committed to supporting vibrant, inclusive and sustainable communities throughout Ireland where people can live, work and connect. We will continue to support the Shared Island Initiative, doubling resources by a further €1 billion out to 2035. In 2026, this will deliver the major Narrowwater Bridge and Ulster Canal restoration projects will forge ahead. A new Dublin Derry Air Link to commence, enabling regular air travel between the two cities. And there will be programmes to develop the bioeconomy, support green capital investment by firms, grow tourism across our border regions and enable world-leading research collaborations. This important work will allow us to continue to develop consensus around a shared future on our island. This government is committed to supporting vibrant, inclusive and sustainable communities throughout Ireland where people can live and connect. Today I'm allocating €611 million to the Department of Rural Community Development in the Gaeltacht. This funding will support a range of target initiatives. I'm allocating €192 million to rural development and regional affairs in 2026. This includes an increase of €5 million for rural supports and the Rural Regeneration and Development Fund. An increase in the current allocation of €9 million for community development supports brings the total allocation in 2026 to €260 million. This includes €4 million in increased funding for the Community Services Programme, bringing total funding to over €59 million. €3 million in additional capital funding for the Community Centre Investment Fund to support refurbishment grants for community centres, and €3.8 million in increased funding for the Peace Plus programme to support the drawdown of committed cross-border projects in 2026. Tá sé ríhabhata go défamis na réún bhilteachta Herberts agus a cousins lena cinsú go mé na mhuiil teanga agus cultúr seo abalta fás agus Ferberts. Tá me gledálig €150 million don bhilteacht agus don net na Hián. Sin méadú €3 million le haig fihe sé. San orb sa bhéadú sin beag €1.5 million in bhainú capital de bhunagar na Nilán lena rít ar tús a chur leis an obair fiosacán ar an gé ar ina siar. €1 million déag in bhainú capital do Heradú Gaeilge agus cultúr, €3.5 million in bhainú médaithe de scéim na taíocht Gaeltachta agus Gaeilge. Strong communities thrive when people feel safe, protected and supported. At Ken Corla, everyone who lives in this country should feel safe in their homes and in their communities. With this in mind, I'm announcing €6.17 billion for the Department of Justice, Home Affairs and Migration. This will fund a range of measures, including the recruitment of up to 1,000 trainee Gardaí in 2026, an additional 200 civilian staff, further intakes into the Garda Reserve, and €19 million to increase the budget for Garda overtime. An additional €39 million for the Irish Prison Service to respond to demand trends, an increase of €11 million for the Court Service, over €6.7 million of additional funding for the Irish Probation Service, and additional funding to complete the rollout of local community safety partnerships. €11.5 million of additional funding will provide for domestic and gender-based violence initiatives in 2026, and a further €7.3 million will continue significant progress in youth justice interventions. Further investment will support international protection processing to increase capacity, as well as providing for costs associated with international protection and temporary protection accommodation. In the area of reform, the Court Service will continue its modernisation programme, implementing and rolling out e-probate and a range of other measures to significantly reduce processing timelines and improve the service to the public. Targeted investment through the probation service and youth justice schemes will help to divert young people away from crime, tackle recidivism and will reduce the need for detention where appropriate. In addition, work will continue to free up Garda numbers to spend less time at administration and more time on the front line and in our communities, in addition to the focus on developing the Garda Reserve. Ireland is committed to safeguarding our national security while contributing to international peace and stability. To support these goals, I'm announcing €1.49 billion in funding for the Department of Defence for 2026. This represents an 11% increase and will provide for a net increase of 400 net Defence Force members, the creation of 50 new civilian posts next year, the recruitment of an additional 70 civil servants to work in critically important areas such as cybersecurity, and a range of non-pay measures including a new Defence Force uniform, equipment and maintenance projects, enhanced recruitment advertising, additional funding to progress maritime security, digital transformation and training and healthcare supports for the Defence Forces. This investment will also enable the progression of ongoing reforms arising from the Commission on the Defence Forces and the Independent Review Group's recommendations. I'm also funding a range of infrastructure projects in defence in 2026, including the progression of the military radar programme, procurement of a modern software-defined radio system, rollout of a new general service body armour system for the Defence Forces, the ongoing upgrade of armoured personal carriers and further modernisation and renovation of military installations throughout the country. At Cancorla, the success of our state and its people over the last 100 years can be seen in our ability to adapt and thrive. For all the challenges we have faced, we have persevered, we have always found a way. Time and again we have turned uncertainty into opportunity, challenge into success. Budget 2026 is our country's collective step forward towards a fairer, better and more resilient future. We know what our challenges are and we must now grasp the opportunity to overcome them. We must build a foundation for our future, homes, communities and a country connected by a clear vision of a bigger and brighter future for ourselves and for our children. Is é seo an bóthar ceart ar tír agus ar níne. This is the right path for our country and our people. I commend this budget to the House.
Okay, and that was Jack Chambers winding up his rapidly delivered speech, you'd have to actually say. I'm looking at the clock.
Paschal Donohoe ran over, Jack Chambers ran under and caught up.
And we're right on time, bang on
right,
schedule.
Bang on time, yeah. Okay, so first impressions overall?
My first impression is that the language, I find sometimes, there's all the announcements obviously, but the language in that, listening to both of the ministers talking about the uncertainty, the troubled times, the global backdrop, it's kind of interesting because, you know, we listened to just through COVID was the big threat. Before that, Brexit was the big threat. And now we have this next big threat. And it's just, there always is this kind of developing, I suppose, boogeyman or kind of underlying thing that they're warning us that right now is troublesome, but Jack Chambers finishing off with the bigger and brighter future.
Yeah, we're at a crossroads apparently.
Yeah.
I didn't realise we were at a crossroads, and this was a historic moment as well. I'm failing to get the context right, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there is uncertainty in the world, and there's
I think we're at a crossroads because they haven't built the underpass or the bypass that's supposed to be built around the town. I mean, maybe that was the point there. Yeah, so there's kind of this. There's risk on the horizon, there's tariffs and there's uncertainty.
Yeah, and yet at the same time...
You were complaining earlier on that I was saying, you know, they're going to be toning down the language, and you were saying, this is a $9.5 billion budget, it's a giveaway budget. You don't feel like it is, do you?
I mean, that's the point. They have given away the guts of 10 billion, and yet they're couching that in, we're not doing a whole lot here because things are so tricky, and yet... Paschal Donohoe talked about by the end of next year they expect to create 63,000 more jobs and for the country to stay at full employment. So for all the threats and tariffs and things that are happening and
2% growth. Trump, I mean, this year there'll be 3% growth.
3.3 this year and 2.3 next year.
Like
it's not terrible.
It's still a pretty booming economy. Katie, do you feel wealthier after that?
No, but I went in knowing that, you know, I certainly there would be no windfalls coming my way. I think for people like everyone here, is it fair to say we're all middle class? We're the squeezed middle, like there's nothing for us. But this is probably going to prove unpopular for me saying this. I do think it was a largely fair and progressive budget. I'm sorry to say that. I think it did. I think it recognised the truly disadvantaged. The people out there who really, really do need the help got the help they needed. And then meanwhile, I think it was positioning Ireland as a player. It was thinking geopolitically, it was thinking to target it by pushing Irish enterprise and helping entrepreneurs. I do think they struck the right balance. Sorry.
Ultimately, Katie, we can't complain that last year they gave a giveaway to everybody ahead of a budget and then turn around this year and complain that, oh no, they're targeting now. So you're looking at things like the fuel allowance, the increase in the child support payment, the social welfare package, and you're saying, yeah, that was the right thing to do. And also at the lower level, 65% increase in minimum wage. That's not going to be popular with the small business sector. But again, that was matched then by indexation in effect across the tax system, so that those people won't be paying more tax as a result of the increase. So you're saying this was a budget that was targeted at the lower level?
Yeah, I think it was targeted at the lower level and then also targeted at the much higher corporate level. And I think that's smart. Like, here's the thing:
you're saying, people, Katie, is the squeezed middle.
The squeezed middle are squeezed further, very much so. But here's the thing:
because if there are going to be if wages are going to increase in the next year, people are just going to be paying more tax as a result of what's happened today.
Yeah, but here the other way of looking at it is people like you and I, you know, on kind of in the middle class, and at the end of every month we're scrambling and we're like, where's the money go? And you're looking at your supermarket receipts. You have to think then, if somebody is on minimum wage, how are they getting by? Like they have to be recognised. It's like it's at a critical level. Child poverty it's a real issue, so it had to be dealt with.
The one thing about the minimum wage is if obviously that affects the hospitality sector in particular. I think basically shops and restaurants and places are the place to pay that. So if they were ever going to put a good chunk like 65 cent, this was the year to do it, because I don't think you can have too many cafe owners or publicans on the news this evening giving out about the 65 cent pay increase for those in the minimum wage. when they're getting a tax cut on the VAT.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I see the logic in doing that. That's a bit higher, I think, than a lot of people had expected to go by 65 cents this time round. But that will then put pressure up the line, because if the people on the lowest wages go up to that, the people a little bit up will start agitating to their employers, going, hold on now, I'm back on minimum wage. I used to be on something above it.
If you're getting 65,000 jobs created in the next year, that means you still have a very buoyant jobs market, which means there is going to be competition at the higher end, which means that wages are going to go up incrementally as well. Let's take a look at a couple of individual elements of the equation. So let's stick with Katie over on Paschal Donohoe's side. The income tax. So he really hasn't done anything there, has he? He's done
There's something small, kind of piecemeal on the USC, but again, it's targeted at people who are on minimum wage.
Yeah, it's to make sure those on the minimum wage are not being caught by the tax net as a result of their increase in income. But as you say, for the middle income earners, for people who are perhaps going up into the higher level, more people are going to be paying tax at the higher level then as a result of that lack of indexation.
Well, this is it. So, I mean, what that's going to look like on the pay slip for some, say, the average salary of which is 52,000, that they are going to be paying more. I'm kind of curious now to see is anyone working there behind the scenes to do the calcs?
Yeah, that normally comes out. You get that from the Department of Finance later on. They normally know how many of Mary and Jack households are going to go up as a result of that. So again, you're saying targeted at the lower end. Kevin, again, that's not something you're going to do in an election year now, is it?
No. I mean, the politics of this is it's 4 years out from an election, and if they're ever going to do it, this is it. So the truth is, I think the government would be, go back a week. Yeah. The government would have been quite happy for this budget to blow over in the space of today. Like a budget, the best outcome you can really have from a budget is that it doesn't dominate the news cycle for days and days, that people go, okay, fine, thanks, we'll take it. If it hadn't been for the crisis Fianna Fáil find themselves in now, they would have liked this to be a low-key budget, one that they can argue is good for jobs, good for enterprise, and is right for this moment of uncertainty. I do think, though, with the cost of living stuff, people are feeling it. It hasn't gone away. They see it in the supermarkets. They feel it in the coffee shops, and those prices are not going to come down. So I don't think there was enough in there of an acknowledgement of that. It was mentioned a few times. Obviously, the VAT on energy is staying down, but it feels that energy prices are going up. And we've seen multiple companies push up their energy prices in the last year. So even though the VAT has stayed the same, you're still probably going to be paying, depending on which provider you're with, paying more this next year than you have last year with your energy credits. Yeah,
I agree. And I think Paschal said it at the start, it's like food prices are going in the wrong direction. We can all see that when we go to the supermarket. I don't know about you, but I'm buying less meat and more vegetables, and that's just where it's at. And then, so you're kind of hoping he's going to do something first, but it's just not there. But I just think this budget targeted the people who are truly on their knees, people who are like, I cannot survive, and that is the restaurant industry, the hairdressing industry. I wasn't aware that they were going to get a cut, but they are really struggling as well.
Sorry, I got my hair cut yesterday. Right, not to make it about me. €30 for this. Yeah, like there's not a lot in this.
It looks good though.
That's a rip-off for Public, Kevin, if ever there is,
Honestly, though, €30.
Clearly, you don't need a tax cut if you got money to throw away like that.
Well, I knew I was sitting down here, and I had to get it done, but. I mean,
the hairdressing sector falls in with the hospitality sector in that particular VAT rate, and we've got numerous explanations over the years about how they can't be separated. They just are. But again, you're not exactly looking at that VAT cut going, oh great, the price of food in a restaurant is going to come down. It's not. As you say, food prices are going to continue to go up this next year. But judging by the economic projections, the rate of food inflation over recent years is going to curtail a bit next year. It's not going to be quite as severe. So maybe that's what they're factoring in here, that they don't want to be putting more money out there into the economy that's possibly the
Yeah,
view,
I mean,
that
the
you end
other-
up just fueling inflation by doing so.
The other alternative they could have done was give smaller energy credits. Obviously, we had multiple ones the last 2 years, so they could have done smaller and tried to wean us off this kind of,
I think the issue there was they just felt we need to stop doing this.
And I think that's why this is the year to do it.
Yeah.
They couldn't do it last year because the election was on the horizon. So, in some ways, they've probably maybe stopped themselves having 2 years of people giving out about it because they wean it off this year, and by next year we don't expect it, and therefore we move on to whatever the next thing. They probably bring back some sort of income tax cuts next year.
Yeah. Also on Paschal's side, housing, supply, and the developers' tax incentives are back.
Yeah.
We're not talking Celtic Tiger elements here, but there were a few sweeteners in there from Paschal Donohoe if you are a builder.
I think he described it at one stage as a social policy, right? So even though you're saying tax breaks for developers, he's saying it's a social policy. And the standout one, I suppose, is the reduction of the VAT on the sale of apartments. And that's going to be in place from tonight, which is interesting. So if you were thinking of signing off on a sale of an apartment today, find a reason to not do it, basically, because that's coming in at midnight. They'll vote on it later on, the Doyle. And that's going to be there till 2030. So basically...
there was a few long-term measures
That's sitting there. There's a bit of certainty, I guess, around that now. Also, the other interesting one was a corporate tax exemption for cost rentals. So this is the scheme whereby developers build apartments and they're rented out below what you would expect to pay. And so what they're basically trying to encourage there is that more companies would do this, presumably large-scale kind of companies that have a lot of apartments, and that they would rent it to you for below the market rate, but now they're going to get a tax break in return for that. There's some changes around kind of land hoarding and tax exemptions there, and then revenue to start collecting what is kind of being renamed as the derelict property tax.
But at the same time, there was something done on the taxation side if you're renovating the derelict property. So they are incentivising it. There's a carrot and stick there now.
The challenge with some of that stuff, though, Fionnán, is that it's very slow. It's not like the housing crisis and the numbers of houses we need to build are off by thousands. And yes, obviously, it's good. It's good communities to fix up derelict properties, but that's one house at a time, and I know we're not really in the kind of
it's one old house. What you're looking at is you want the apartments and the housing estates to go up.
I think that's the only solution, really. If there are derelict houses all over the country, there's no doubt about that. And yes, there should be some sort of incentive and scheme there to get them done up, because effectively, I suppose you could call them half-built properties. There's some sort of bricks and mortars there, but at the same time, that's not going to solve the housing crisis. It's the right thing to do, but I don't know that you can say that that's anything close to a big bang measure.
Yeah, so that was all about Paschal and his resilience. Kerry, talk to me about the social welfare then. What do you think, setting the politics aside, from a personal finance perspective, €10 on the pension and across the board, weekly social welfare
€12
payments?
last year, so...
Yeah.
It's less than last year, but I think comparatively to where everything else, it was still a bumper, kind of I think it was the bumper part of this budget.
They're always afraid of the pensioners.
Yeah. And I think that will make the difference, you know. As you were saying earlier, it's like the double digits, just kind of, it's the optics and the psychology of it, isn't it?
Yeah, Christmas bonus in there as well on those payments. Again, they were hardly going to take that away. They'd be accused of being Scrooge. That just wasn't going to happen. A lot of movement on the carer side. Again, you were saying beforehand, big budget element. So they are putting a big emphasis there on we're moving towards greater availability of the carer's allowance.
Yeah, and look, that's a big one, and I think there has been a lot of talk about disability. There's been a lot of talk about children with special needs in the lead up to the election. Obviously, Simon Harris got in a lot of trouble about that, and he has kind of built his personal pitch in politics was around disabilities, and people were saying you haven't done enough in that area. So the income disregard for carers up to €1,000 for a single person, 2,000 for a couple. It will make a difference. I think you will still probably have the advocacy groups out saying it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's a bit. It's not enough.
The programme for government commitment is over the lifetime of the government. So this is year by year.
They're showing that they started.
That figure there, it's actually, the income disregard there is actually higher than they were projecting about 10 days ago. So they're making a step there. Dara Calleary's first budget as Minister for Social Protection, happy enough?
Well, I would say relatively compared to some of the other ministers, yes. You know, I think there has been I've heard some kind of murmurings about, Dara's not getting that much and Dara's looking for 12 on the pension, but he's only going to get maybe
but you go in
8.
looking for 12 thinking you're going to get...
Yeah, you land on 10, you're probably
yeah.
come out happy enough. So I think he's done okay. I mean, for me, Fionnán, this is a budget of choices. They have made choices. So in more recent years, they have thrown money at everything. This time they've had to make choices. That's probably the one difference here. And so, yes, certainly in social protection, they have made some choice. Like even little things like the back to school allowance being brought back a year, so you can get it now for 2 or 3 year olds. And you know, people with young kids will know that are on low incomes. Well, we are sending kids out now to Montessori, to ECI. That is part of the education system. When we were younger, you went to school when you were 4.
Yeah.
Now they are going at 2 and 3 into some sort of educational setting. So there's little things like that I think families will feel that are good. Like, so there are good things to point to. There's no doubt.
I think the increase in SNAs is again, it's a group that has been heard. You know, it's another group in society who are just on their knees. This is parents in schools. Their child needs an SNA. There's not enough to go around. I think that also reflects that they're hearing vulnerable and disadvantaged groups and giving them something that they need.
I would want to hear more about the childcare package. I think it wasn't massively highlighted.
I'm quite sceptical of what I heard.
Yeah,
I didn't hear any explanation for how this was going to lower childcare costs.
No.
Yeah, I found that all quite convoluted.
So maybe that's just to explain to people. There are ministerial press conferences throughout the rest of today
and tomorrow,
and you get more meat on the bone of it. I think that childcare package is. We're going to want to know a bit more about that before casting a thumbs up or thumbs down on it. Also in education, Kevin, was James Lawless and the curious case of the disappearing cut in the college registration fee, as we call it.
Yeah, this was really, and I mean, people were putting it down earlier in the year. James Lawless went on a radio interview and said that the reduction of €1,000 to the college registration fees was a cost. It was part of the cost of living measures, and he was asked, so if we're not getting energy credits, we're saying we're not doing cost of living, does that mean that the reduction in student fees is gone? He answered the question, like a minister, said, yes, obviously, if we're not doing cost of living measures, that's a cost of living measure, it's gone. Blows the whole thing up. Everyone can't believe it. Turning your back on young people. And maybe it was a genius ploy, because as a result, it's one of the few cuts they've actually done here, and they have reduced.
It's a half the cost of living measure that was there last year, but they'll now be accused of a U-turn and an increase because you'll be 500 quid more than it was last year. So
it was 2,000 last year. It's going to be 2,500 now, 2,500. Traditionally, it was 3,000. It's been 3,000 for many years.
And was that a permanent cut?
A permanent cut.
Okay, so it's not a once-off rolling one each year that you're hoping is going to repeat. So that's a permanent cut then in the college registration fee. Okay.
Yeah, I think
give that to them.
It's one of those ones where they've gone and done something that if they had done it at any other sequence of events would be like, wow, that's great, you've done something really good for students. But because it had been reduced by 1,000, because there was a whole row before this happened,
it kind of feels the coalition, the Fine Gaelers were raging about it and so on and so forth.
It kind of feels like you did it now because you had to. You know,
it's
not that you did something, you thought up an idea and went, do you know who will help? We'll help students. It's kind of like, we have to give it to the students now because that's become a whole political backlash thing.
I think elsewhere there was just a lot of like what you're already getting but repackaged. You know, like
extension. The word extension popped up a lot. As well as your resilience too.
Will I do your resilience?
Yeah, do resilience.
So we had 5 Paschal and 3 Jack Chambers resilience.
Okay.
So 8 times we had resilience in there, and that's, to me, that was the word that they obviously had decided was their theme.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Like, what are they actually thinking there? No, like, what do we need
We
to
will
be
survive.
resilient? Yes, it's
Yeah.
very Churchillian sort of. So where's that coming from? And what are we? What's the big
Storm
challenge?
clouds gathering, Katie.
I mean, I know it's
Yeah,
there's-
if you look at what Jack shared, the three priorities were infrastructure, targeted public services, and being better prepared for what boogeyman might be coming around the corner. On the spending side, Kevin, there was a lot of talk about infrastructure there. We're getting an action plan in infrastructure. There's a thing coming about reforming how we spend money. There 19.1 billion in capital investment. That's a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, we really start seeing delivery though.
Oh, yeah. And he admitted in the speech that we have a problem with delivery, that we have mentioned all these. And I suppose he mentioned Dublin Metro in there. That's the greatest example of how we don't seem to be able to build these things. What I thought was interesting, he started that whole section, which was very lengthy, reflecting back on the Ardna Crusha, 1925, 100 years ago, when the plan for Ardna Crusha came forward, and it was a huge investment for the country, and I suppose it is something that every child has learned about in schools for generation now, was the existence of Ardna Crusha. And Jack Chambers said that this today would mark the start of, or the beginning of, an infrastructure revolution for the next generation. That's quite a big promise, actually.
With little enough detail. I was actually disappointed. I thought we were going to get more. He spoke about reforming how we spend money.
Yeah.
There was nothing there in terms of I'm going to set up a new office of budgetary restraints.
Are you suggesting that they should have some sort of infrastructure czar? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
maybe
looking
that was the.
How much would you pay this czar?
That was the idea. But yeah, again, talking about record this and record that. Yeah, do you know what? That's kind of because we have a booming economy and we have the largest population we have since the famine. So, of course, things are going to be a record.
Now, look, to be fair, he has 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And he has to get through all of that. So maybe we'll cut him a little slack in the immediate.
Yeah, we're also getting sectoral investment plans. A lot of money going into housing. Action plan on infrastructure. So there's more to come there as well. I love this idea. There's a contingency fund. That's called, we anticipate that people are going to go over budget, so therefore we're going to have an emergency kitty in the back, particularly for the EU presidency.
So I'll put a $5 on health.
Yeah.
I'll put a few quid on housing.
Yeah.
And maybe
justice or education.
Justice or education. Education was going to be my next one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that makes sense.
Well, maybe it's better to have it than
to have
looking for
and
it.
To be able to allocate it than be coming into the end of the year as they are this year and being 2.5 billion or 3 billion over. Yeah. Better to be able to allocate at the end of a quarter.
There's
or a
half. Lot. Anyone in business will tell you this, and there's any manager who manages budgets. You never get to the end of the year and hand money back because you won't get it next year. So you can understand budgets are targets, So. Look, it probably makes more sense than to have to be dipping and looking for it somewhere else and hoping that corporation tax runs over somewhere and then go, oh, look, grand, we have that $500 million.
Yeah. Katie, the old reliables. Mm-hmm. So the carbon tax will go up as expected. So that's going to be 2 or 3 cents on the price of petrol diesel tonight. Mm-hmm. And then we've
Kevin, I'll issue Kevin's a reminder again. Get to your nearest forecourt.
Get to your nearest pub as well and drink a lot.
The
price of a pint is fine.
And we cannot encourage that.
So the price of a pint is grand. Didn't touch that. Wine, spirits, all that alcohol left alone. 50 cents on the packet of fags. Again, an old reliable, an old dependable. Traditionally, we're told that hits people on lower incomes more, but ultimately, this is a health incentive issue.
Can I ask, before you do that though, do you know as money editor, how much is the price of a packet of cigarettes now?
Gosh, as a money editor, I don't know. Is it about €18?
Yeah.
It's nearly €1 a cigarette now.
Yeah, so it continues to go up.
But
nonetheless, I mean, the health groups will always call for this, any of the medical experts. So,
and it is right. It does. It does affect people in lower incomes more so, and it also leads to people, you know, kind of selling in the black market and going to the black market. Like that's a huge.
Yeah, well, you don't know what you're getting.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like which is a huge trade in of itself. But
it's a huge cost in the health service as well.
Yes.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so look, that was going to happen. Right, all told, you're a bit underwhelmed, but you're saying that you think that they struck the right balance here in terms of what came out.
I do. I think the people who've been shouting the loudest and who are very much on their knees were recognised today. And I think it also sees Ireland as being an international player, and I think it was very much we took care of the people who needed it most, and then meanwhile we started to think about Ireland Inc. and I thought it was quite progressive and visionary in that sense.
Whereas I feel the people who hold it all together got nothing. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful. I agree, Katie. I don't mind if I don't get a tax cut if that money is going in the right places to people who need it more than me. I think that there are probably a lot of people out there who feel they need it right now and they didn't get that. So yes, you spread it too thin, you give it to everybody. Yeah. They can't really win, but I think that people won't be going, this was a fantastic budget. I think they will be going, this was a budget that had very little for the man and the woman who are just holding it all together.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and indeed I'm looking at the numbers who are following us online for staying with us throughout the best part of 2 hours on the Indo Politics Live Budget 2026 special. Now, don't go away. Well, do go away for now, but you can continue to follow Budget 2026 coverage you have a podcast coming out this evening.
I do, with Charlie Weston and Sinead Ryan.
You're specifically so on the personal finance aspects.
Yes, we're going to try and get into the pay slip, how it's going to affect. So we were talking earlier, like what's that going to look like?
Yeah, specifically for your pay packet or your back pocket, and you have a whole host of people upstairs writing expert analysis on this budget as well.
There is a whole newsroom. It's the busiest day of the year in the newsroom. We'll fuel them with pizzas a little bit later on, and there'll be a print supplement, old-fashioned print supplement in the Irish Independent tomorrow, but the live blog is going all evening. There's case studies, there's analysis. There'll be a budget calculator online shortly to help you with that pay slip question as well, Katie. And yeah, podcasts and more video to come.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, and keep following on the Irish Independent for further developments in Budget 2026.